when we told our kids for the second time, nobody said anything. One of the boys said, "Mom, are you okay?" And I said, yes. And I couldn't understand why they were asking me that question when Kevin was sitting right there and he was the one who was going to die.
This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast. In the modern world, people love to talk. Give somebody the freedom to express themselves on a topic that they're passionate about makes for a very long conversation. Usually those conversations are very one-sided, or each party ends up waiting for their turn to talk. You can't hear what somebody's saying if you're speaking. The words will become mumbled and the meaning will be lost. The most difficult thing to do is to listen. Sometimes, when somebody comes to you to speak, all they're asking you to do is absorb their words, quietly allowing them to release the burden off their chest, without giving judgment or opinion, allowing them to verbally work out whatever issue is on their mind. I'm Kevin Donaldson here with Mike Failace, and on this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we welcome back one of our favorite people in the world, and that's Laurice Duffy.
Revisiting an old friend.
That's right, to talk about the suffering of a life coach. Laurice has taken a talent that she found at a very young age and made a career out of it. Laurice, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
She's still at a young age, though.
Well, from what I read about Laurice, from a very, very young age, little baby Laurice. Before we get into anything, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody, but we do trust Toyota of Hackensack. So if you're looking for a car, go to toyotahackensack.com. Let them find you a car. Laurice, thank you so much for coming back.
I'm so glad to be here.
I'm trying to remember what episode you were on. God, that was a long time ago.
It was in the summer. It was not this past summer, but the summer before.
I do remember where I was the first time I talked to you. So Mike tells me, I got a friend, great story, tells me about your husband, Kevin, and I call you. I was pulling in, I was in the town I work in, I was pulling in right by Town Hall, and I was on the phone with you. I actually pulled over into a little side parking lot, and you got a little bit into your story, and I said, stop, you're perfect.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah, you didn't want to take away the newness of just like saying it as it,
The spontaneity.
Yes, exactly.
But see, you know what's funny about Laurice? I mean, I've known Laurice for a long time. I mean, I was at her wedding.
Yes.
That's how long I've known Laurice. But she's the type of person that you just want to hate. Because
it's too nice.
She exactly. She's so joyful and outgoing and everything. And to sit there and I think,
it's disgusting.
Why am I such an asshole?
Well, thank you for that compliment. I appreciate that.
That's an offhanded compliment.
So we're gonna touch a little bit on your previous episode because it was so long ago. But if you want to listen to that, I want to just invite our audience to go back into our audio days when we were recording in the basement, back when it was just a hobby for us, and listen to Laurice's episode because it's really heart-wrenching.
The suffering of losing a partner.
And it's really a beautiful, beautiful story. The love you and your husband Kevin had.
Thank you.
And
have passed down to your kids.
But things have changed a little bit since the last time we saw each other. Things are moving up. You're in a different location. You don't have to walk downstairs. You actually have to walk up.
Yeah, I love it. It's the real deal. Congratulations, you guys.
But as much as things change is as much as they stay the same. Of course, we always take a social media question from our audience. And this one comes from Phil_Lizzo. I don't know maybe that's his full name. What liability do you have with what you say? Now, Laurice, you're a life coach, and I'm not even sure what the parameters are of what a life coach can say and what they can't say, where they overstep their bounds. Ultimately, it's about trying to stay in your lane. Mm-hmm. So what kind of liability does a life coach have?
I would say different from a therapist, a life coach is all about bringing someone from functional to optimal. We don't dive into the past as much as a therapist would, although we go there. But basically, coaching is more about asking questions.
You're looking more for like blockers of success more than anything else.
Absolutely,
from the past.
Absolutely. And I'm looking to really dig deep. I'm looking to hear things that aren't being said. And that's a big part of my job. And really navigating a journey of helping someone sort of see around their own blind spots, really recognize what beliefs they're carrying that are no longer serving them. So in answer to your question, I would say that it's less about giving advice and more about asking questions and certainly asking permission to share things that I'm noticing or things that I'm sometimes hearing that aren't being said.
Well, asking a question is to pretty much to elicit a response, so you could work off of that response to see where their mindset is at.
Absolutely.
I really like that you're helping them navigate around some of the blind spots. A blind spot is something obviously you can't see. They're not seeing it, and if they could see it, doesn't do well for your profession. They might not need you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And my hope is that to get them to a point where they don't need me. This isn't a forever. I want to get them to a point where they feel really good about where they are and they've recognized and begin living a life that's really serving them.
Man, maybe we should hire Laurice as our
I think we said that last time too.
suffering podcast life coach.
we need that.
Yeah. Mike, what do you think?
You know what I mean? Listen,
I mean, we deal with, you and I are on the same page with this because we've spoken about this several times. We have to be very careful that and explain to people, we're not therapists.
Sure.
We're experienced people. That's all we are.
the only degree I have is in like bullshit. You know, like you said, I mean, you don't give advice, but we kind of give advice because that's all we could do. Because we don't go through what people are going through. You know, we can't. I could barely dig into my own mind. Never mind digging into someone else's mind. You know, so I think, to me, the only thing is, I mean, I don't think I won't say we're not held liable for what we say.
We have 0 degrees.
Yeah, we have 0 degrees.
Yeah.
So there's really not much. I mean, the only thing I could do is try to soothe someone over and get them the help that we need. You know, we say it all the time from this podcast. Now we know we don't know a lot, but we know a lot of people that could help people in different directions.
So we can sort of guide people.
We navigate around the blind spots.
Yes. Now, if you're looking for a degree and you want to talk about movements and Renaissance literature, I can help you out because I do have that English degree. But beyond that, giving advice comes strictly for, you know, and again, let me make it very, very clear. I'm pretty, advice is the wrong word to use. I try never to give anybody advice. I might give them a suggestion. Hey, look here, try this spot. Sure. So it's suggesting where to navigate. And that's why a lot of times when we bring people in here, I'm very careful that whatever suffering they have endured, that they're not in the depths of their suffering.
Absolutely. Yes. You know, I completely understand that.
But, you know, like you said, it's not advice. It's a suggestion. Our suggestion is based solely on whether it be personal experience or personal feeling, you know, because we don't have the degree.
Well, but what I hear you saying is there's a lot of, or there could be even just personal liability in, you know, someone who is so fragile, someone who's really in the depths of their grief, that's, or whatever suffering they're going through.
In the throes of their suffering.
Yeah, that's not a time when I think you want to really be giving advice.
And that's when you don't want to slip up either. You say the wrong thing.
Yeah. You have to tread lightly.
But we've had offers for people to come in here that are in the depths, in the throes of whatever suffering they're enduring, and I've turned them down. Mike has turned them down.
We had one just last week.
Yeah.
I told the guy, I said, listen, you're in your suffering right now. When you come through that suffering, then you come talk to us.
I have to compliment you guys for that. I give you a lot of credit because someone who's, you know, in that area, you know, or just in that stage could really be great for, you know, getting a lot of listeners.
Yeah. But
so
we don't do it for...
Right, and I love that.
We don't do it for the listeners.
The person. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, the listens are going to come.
Of course.
I'm like Kevin said. We're not. If you're in the depths of your suffering, you need to talk to a professional. You don't need to come to talk to 2 idiots sitting behind a mic. That ain't going to help you. You may feel better about yourself when you look at both of us, but
I think if that were to happen, we'd be exploitation artists, and we're not exploitation artists. We're here to talk to people who have been through some stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll say something where somebody will gravitate to a little bit later on and say, yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. Let me give it a shot. And maybe it'll work for them. Maybe it won't work for them. Yeah. Phil, thank you so much for sending that one, and keep sending them in, and we'll try to get them on the air. Now, I would be remiss. We just got a new sponsor, and we're about to do an event there. By the time this airs, the event will have already happened. 3 Acres Luxury Condominiums in Jersey City. They've been wonderful to us. It's one of those places. It's almost like a live-in resort. It's got
Wow.
everything
Really
there.
is.
It's got a pool.
crazy.
It's got a game room. It's got a restaurant. It's got a bar. It's got
You never have to leave there.
classes. I was just there last Friday night, and they were holding an art class, and everybody comes down. It's like it's a real community, and we love them, and we just want to give a big shout out to them because they're so great.
And they have a
that's
pool
nice.
on the roof, too, so you don't have to, you don't have to leave.
Nice.
You can go right up on
Well,
the pool.
in Jersey City, I mean, look at all the restaurants. I mean, it's a great place to be, even if you don't have the luxury.
It's becoming Hoboken adjacent.
Yeah.
You're not kidding.
So, Laurice, last time we spoke to you, and it's been some time, why don't you give everybody a little bit of a recap on your story?
Sure.
It's a good one. It's more. It deserves more than a recap, but unfortunately, we only got an hour. So.
Yeah. So the quick version is I married the love of my life, and we had a wonderful marriage.
Gross.
And
I know.
It's gross.
Vomit.
he was a goodie. But we had 4 boys. 3 are triplets. And we went through IVF to get pregnant with the 3 boys. And our youngest, what I call our bonus, he was natural. And we lived a wonderful life, a lot to be grateful for. And my husband coached boys in basketball, football, and baseball. He was very athletic. He was very healthy. Of all the things I worried about, I never worried about losing my husband. It just was not on my radar of things to worry about. And
That was the rock.
yeah,
Like
absolutely.
I said, though, he was so athletic and so full of life, you'd think he's the last one to get sick.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I said, I've known Kevin since 1987, I think it was, when I first met him, 87, 88.
Yeah.
When we first got in a pipe fitters union together.
Right.
And he
right,
came
right.
down with ALS,
So
correct?
he just had some weird symptoms after like 9 months of seeing doctors. He was diagnosed with ALS, and we were told he would probably have about 3 to 5 years to live. And it was a punch in the stomach. We really thought we got all the scary possibilities out of the way. And this was just a blow. I mean,
If I remember correctly, there was also misdiagnosis at one point.
We found out about Lyme disease and
that was it,
thought
Lyme
maybe
disease.
it was a misdiagnosis, only to go in this full circle of therapies, diets, IV antibiotic for Kevin to start declining. And it was at that point that I said to him, I'm not sure if we're searching for answers or running from the truth. And back to the ALS specialist, where we were told, I don't know if you have Lyme disease or not. What I know for sure is that you have ALS. That was
Talk about a gut punch.
Oh, yeah, it was.
It's just a slow ALS. One of my guy I went to high school with, who ended up being a football coach for my high school. I watched the whole digression of what ALS does to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a brutal disease because it's not. We all hope for when it's our time, and it's all going to be our time sooner or later to be, lights out.
Absolutely.
But to watch that, oh God, it's got to be gut wrenching.
It's cruel. It's a cruel disease. I had written that Kevin lost his battle with ALS. And then the next sentence I said, actually, it was never a fair fight from the beginning. And it's a waiting game. That's all you can do.
And you just watch him deteriorate the whole time.
And it's a deterioration. If losing my husband wasn't the worst thing that was happening to me, what I realized was that watching my 4 boys watch their father, their coach, their strong, very mentally
They're
tough
rock. Yeah.
father, best friend, hero deteriorate was heartbreaking.
This is a very tough question, and I didn't get a chance to ask you this the last time you were on. And it's not meant to be disrespectful at all, but I watched a lot of things on Dr. Kevorkian, and I know he did his suicide machine on a couple patients with ALS. Mm-hmm. And just he did video of it before to make sure that they were of sound mind, and this is what they wanted to. I guess he was trying to cover his butt a little bit. That's how bad of a disease this is. When Kevin was going through his struggles and seeing this strong man go into what he finally became at the end, was that ever something that maybe crossed his mind?
No.
No, he stayed
No.
strong the whole time?
He wanted hope. No, he wanted hope the whole time.
That's a stoic man.
He really wanted hope.
Kevin was the type of person to quit anything.
Oh, no, right. Kevin would, we were in hospice, and Kevin would, he couldn't speak any longer. It took his ability to speak away. And he would just give the boys a look, and the boys knew, like, get up, your grandparents are here, let them sit down. Or if somebody used profanity, he would just give them a look that meant you better cut it out right now. He was a father to them until the day he died, and with no ability to speak, but he still got his point across that wasn't okay, and he was going to father them until his last breath, and he did.
You know, it's funny. He couldn't speak. Kevin was someone who wouldn't shut up.
Well,
That's what it took to shut him up?
let me tell you something really quick. It's just a cute little funny story. So all of my children had Coxsackie. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but
I
it's
do.
awful.
I do.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So one of them had it so bad that the doctor said, I've never seen it this bad. Okay. So now you have to understand, I have 4 boys that have Coxsackie and a husband that's in our bedroom and with a terminal illness. Well, my sister got him a bell. It was just a little bell because he could no longer speak. So this way he would. So I'm caring for the other boy, the boys. And all of a sudden, this bell goes bing, 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 bing. So I just drop everything and I run into the room and he points, he's thirsty. I go, all right, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. I'm thirsty is bing, 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 like you just did. That's I can't breathe anymore. So let's just get clear on, So we did still have a sense of humor when appropriate, with certain things.
Well, Kevin always had a great sense of humor.
He had a great sense of humor.
You turned poor Kevin into Hector Salamanca from Breaking Bad, just with the bell.
That bell.
So you watch a 3-year digression of the love of your life. Kevin passes. Mm-hmm. The inevitability of the passing was certain, but again, I'm sure when it hit, it was still a surprise. Now, his suffering is over. Mm. Your suffering has just begun. You got 4. How old were the boys when he passed?
So they were 14 and 11 when he was diagnosed, and 17 and I think 14 when he passed away. The boys were at the end of their junior year in high school, and Aiden was the end of 8th grade.
That's what I was going to say. He didn't get to see him graduate high school in 8th grade.
Nope.
But now you're left, and now your suffering begins, which is the whole crux of the last episode that you were in.
Yes.
And you pick yourself up. Mm. And, what kind of strength did Kevin's passing give you?
Halfway through this, and you have to remember, I started grieving when Kevin was diagnosed. And although we thought it was Lyme disease, so we had hope for a while, like I had said, then we were brought back to reality with being told that it actually was ALS. And when we told our kids for the second time, nobody said anything. One of the boys said, "Mom, are you okay?" And I said yes. And I couldn't understand why they were asking me that question when Kevin was sitting right there and he was the one who was going to die. And I thought about it for days. And what I realized was they knew they were going to lose their father. They were watching him deteriorate before their eyes. And what they wanted to be sure of was that they weren't going to lose their mom too. The mom that they knew, the mom that I always had been. And that gave me some of my power back, because what I realized is I was trying so hard. I don't know if I was trying to run from reality or just trying to have hope, to believe that he was going to be okay, because I couldn't imagine that they were going to, that this wonderful husband and father and, brother and son-in-law and friend, exactly, would be taken from us. It just didn't make any sense. But once I realized that I didn't have control over Kevin getting well, I realized that I did have control over something, and that was my children and how I was going to lead my family in this crisis, in this tragedy. And I realized that that's where my power was. In
navigating these troubles.
Absolutely.
But it sounds like, from what I know about you, you've always had that power to navigate through others' troubles, including your own.
Yeah. I would say that's probably a strength of mine, and has been, thankfully. I I definitely was. I realized that my children have never lost anything. Probably the worst thing that they'd ever lost was like a championship baseball game, you know? So here we are in this tragic situation, and I realized that they were going to follow my lead. And I was very mindful of who I was going to be while we were living life, while waiting for death. And that's, that was basically the crux of it. It was that was our reality. And
That was your mindful journey.
yeah,
Gee, how do I
yeah.
know? How do I know that name? Obviously,
What a great segue.
Laurice is the host of Mindful Journey, which you can tell everybody where you can find Mindful Journey, the podcast.
So the podcast is actually Aligned and Awakened.
Okay.
A Mindful Journey is the name of my company, of my coaching company.
Okay.
So, yes. So absolutely being really mindful on this journey of navigating life while waiting for death.